Hello and welcome. I am so excited that you guys are here. Welcome to Cannabis Marketing Live. All puff, no fluff. I'm here. I have been wanting to do this for months and I am so excited to be here with you guys today. My name is Kendra Losee and I'm the host of this all new, awesome Facebook Live show where we will be bringing you the brightest, boldest, and wait for it, most badass people, ideas, and technologies and marketing for the cannabis industry. Like I said, I'm really excited. I may or may not have had a lot of caffeine today, so bear with me. Welcome to episode 1. If you're watching the replay, please make sure and add your comments below, any questions that you have. I'll be responding to those. I want to make sure that I see the replay people as well and that you guys get the answers to the questions you have. Now, one of the things that I wanted to talk to you guys about is one, give me your likes, give me your comments, give me your hearts, give me your questions. I want the feedback. Secondly, today we're going to be talking about 3 things. The first one is the challenges of the cannabis industry and marketing cannabis. The second we are going to be talking about are 5 things that you need to have in order to create a winning marketing strategy. Who doesn't want to win, right? And third is how to start finding the why for your business. So it's something that is really important in order to differentiate yourself and really make sure that you are really standing out. And standing out authentically. So we are going to be covering those 3 things. If you just arrived, welcome. As I mentioned, if you're watching the replay, welcome to the replay. And be sure and put in comments about the state that you're coming from, because I really want to make sure that as we're going forward and as I'm developing this, that since all the states are different, that we're addressing all of you guys and not just California, because that's where I am. And it's home, even though I love Denver as well, in Colorado. Okay, so there's 3 things that we're going to cover today. Now, the first one, I tried to get fancy here, so let's see how it works. The first one, did it work? Is it there? Let's see here. Boom, challenges in the cannabis and marketing cannabis. Now, it's hitting me in the head. Oh well. So one of the things as we start looking at marketing cannabis is that cannabis regulation overall feels like it changes daily, right? Retailers in California are looking at a deadline for July 1 that's looming over people, or people feel like it's looming over them. And from the marketing side, in March, the National Cannabis Association proposed some advertising standards to create consistency and to help us start self-regulating the industry in terms of what we're doing for advertising. Hopefully that will help in the long run. But in the meantime, those regulations are there, and it's a starting point. Everyone needs a starting point when it comes to advertising and marketing, and that will be better than what we have right now, because right now every state is different. We're all aware of that. You've got the local requirements, you have your state laws, and then there's the federal laws. And so, for example, in California, the law states that any advertising or marketing placed in broadcast, cable, radio, television. Hi, Alex. Welcome. Thanks for being here. I was just talking about the rules and the laws for regulations for cannabis. So, for example, any advertising or marketing placed in broadcast, doesn't matter if it's online or offline, traditional or not, 71.6% of the audience who can see the ad have to be over the age of 21. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never been able to try and figure out if 0.6% of the audience driving by a billboard is over the age of 21 or not. I don't know how you would measure that. That's a very dated law or regulation, how it's formatted from the past. So in terms of like Nielsen ratings, and it gets into this whole thing that we're not going to go over right now, but it's a crazy law because 71.6% of anything is hard to get to, let alone when you're talking about eyeballs on an ad. So the thing is that the states aren't regulated consistently amongst themselves for any way, but especially the advertising and marketing. And then there's the federal regulations, right? The federal regulations, so the federal regulations are that are imposing as well, right? Unless you're in Canada or Uruguay, the two countries now go Canada that cannabis is legal. We have very strict federal regulations around advertising since cannabis is illegal and a Schedule I drug. Thanks, Alex. I actually made my lower third and my graphics using Canva. So I'm using BeLive to broadcast, Canva for the lower third and all my graphics that I did. So I'm excited you're here. Thank you for being here and supporting. I appreciate that. I love seeing people. Okay, so when we look at state by state and we look at federal regulations, part of the problem, as many of you guys know, if you've tried to do any ads, emails, Google searches, or Google paid ads, we are limited because as an illegal drug, it's not allowed. So what can people use if you're limited on your digital marketing? So you can't use Google ads. You can't use regular display networks. We cannot do Facebook ads. We're not supposed to do any of those, YouTube, social media ads. Where do you go and how do you market? And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. When you talk to digital agencies, and having worked in digital agency, a lot of the marketing and how we think about advertising and overall what happens online is in three areas, right? It falls into paid, earned, and owned media. So paid is something you pay for. Earned is like SEO, search engine optimization. So something that brings in leads or brings in people and you earn that. So PR, public relations, search engine optimization, all of that. And then owned are the channels that you own. So your website. Social media fits across all of those in a weird way. So we'll talk about social media separate. But what happens when you're trying to market and you can't use one of those main pillars? That means that you're relying on the other two pillars even more to be able to bring people in. And so that's what we're going to be talking about as we go forward. All right. So not just today, as much as I would love to tell you all of that today, I'll be breaking it up and interviewing people who are experts in each of those areas. So when we look at, let me change this. So I was trying to get tricky here. We're going to go here to here. We're talking about number 2. We're talking about 5 things that you need to create a winning marketing strategy. How do we address those challenges? That's the goal. How do we reach our target audience? That's the goal. All right. So that's what we're here to talk about. That's what we're going to be talking about going forward. So 5 things you need, it's over here, to create a winning marketing strategy. Yes, for your cannabis business, whether you're an ancillary service serving cannabis companies, or whether you are a cannabis business, grower, brand, producer, distributor, retailer, whatever that looks like. Let's talk about your marketing strategy because we want you to grow and be successful. All right. So we're going to break down these 5 things. And like I said, I tried to get a little fancy here since it's just me. And I know that not everyone are audio learners, so I wanted to get some visuals in here too. So the very first thing you need to have a winning marketing strategy is to know where you're going. Now, I have spent a good part of my life in water sports, and I don't mean swimming, which, although if I'm swimming, I still want to know where I'm going, but I mean rowing, or most recently, outrigger canoe paddling. Think of the Hawaiian canoes like Hawaii 5-0, right? Now, there is no way I would get in a canoe to paddle for 2 to 6 hours, depending on the race, without knowing where we're going, because no one wants to put all of that work and all of that effort and that literal blood, sweat, and tears into something if you don't know what path you're on, if you don't know what waters you need to navigate. So that's a very long way for me to say that I will be using a lot of water and teamwork analogies because that's what I do. So the first thing is to know where you're going. So that means creating your business goals. And it sounds simple, but you want to make sure that you have smart business goals that are specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and timely. You need them because you need to know where you're going because that is going to direct the rest of your marketing. There have been so many times throughout my life, really, throughout my career, that people have found out that small business owners have found out that I'm in marketing. And the most frequently asked question I get is, what marketing should I do? What social media platform should I be on? My dad used to hand me crazy farming magazines and ask me which one he should put his ads in for his business. You can't answer that unless you know what your goals are. What are you trying to accomplish and achieve? And that will direct where you put your time, your money, and your focus. Because otherwise, you're just spinning wheels. And that's not something anybody wants to do. Because, oh my God, if you had put me in a canoe and told me that to just go without telling me where we're going or how long our practice is or how long this race is, you just can't keep it up mentally, emotionally, and physically. It's just too hard. So let's avoid that and make sure that you know where you're going. All right. So let's switch over to the second one. And I love this one. I could talk about this for a really long time. You need to know your audience and your audience, who you're trying to reach. You need to know what they care about and how you can help them. You need to know what motivates you. Hey Liz, welcome. I'm so excited. I see people and friends and people supporting. It's great. Feel free to jump in if you have any marketing cannabis questions. I know you've asked me about CBD in the past, so I'm working on getting someone who has a great CBD brand here to talk about their marketing and their products. So I've thought about you, actually. So when you start looking at your target audience, you need to know who they are. You want to know where they're hanging out. You want to know what they care about. You want to know where they're getting their information. Are they using Facebook? Are they using the newspaper? Is your target audience the baby boomers who are aging and need some of that medical cannabis to help them with their aches, pains, ailments, illnesses, what have you? Or are you looking at the younger millennials and starting to get into Generation Z and looking at what they want and what they need? So it's really, really important to understand who your target audience is because otherwise you might end up advertising on social media when you really should be looking at, for lack of a better way, NPR. Excuse me. So, sorry. So it's something that it's really important. And the more information you can get about their motivations, their hopes, their dreams, what they need, what they can use to really help them, the better you're going to be able to be to reach them and start building that tribe because you want to be able to get them to know you and like you and trust you. And not just once. You want them over time to build that loyalty. And that's an entirely different strategy, but it's also something that's really important. And it goes back to your goals of what are you trying to accomplish and how that breaks down into your business and your marketing. So after you look at, and honestly, target audience can be its own episode because there's whole things like avatars and personas that marketers will build for you. And both of those are where you do this deep research and often surveys into customers or conversations and interviews with customers to really, or clients or patients, to understand what is affecting them and what they need the most help with. How can you help them transform their life from being in pain to being pain-free, from wanting to have fun, from whatever it is that your goals are and what you're trying to accomplish? That is how you can help them. So it's really, really important to know those ins and outs for your customer. And an avatar or a persona, if you're not aware, is basically where someone will do that deep dive into research into your customers and create that ideal customer for you. And the avatar is just the outline of what that looks like. Oftentimes people will name it. So, Natalie might be a soccer mom in Northern California who uses cannabis instead of a glass of wine to relax at night, right? Like, it's understanding what their needs are, what their wants are, what their day looks like, to understand how you can best influence them and how you want to make them feel when it comes to your company, your brand, and your products. So the next part, the third thing, is to know your why. Whoops, let me change this, right? We don't want to sit there talking about customers anymore. You need to know your why. Why are you doing this? What's your purpose? What's your authentic self? Oh gosh, I hate it when people say that. What is your reason for wanting to start your business? Why should people care about what you're doing? What is it you're trying to accomplish? So this is actually something that's really interesting. I will put a link in the show notes to a TED Talk by Simon Sinek. If you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend it. It is beneficial for you if you have your own company. It's beneficial for you if you're working for another company. It's beneficial for you if you are thinking about how to frame what it is that you're trying to do for your customers. And it really comes down to understanding the benefits and the transformation that you're trying to make for your audience and how you want them to feel. So I mentioned this earlier. This is something that Apple does really well. This is something that Harley Davidson is constantly held up as an example for a company that really understands that they're not selling motorcycles, they're selling a lifestyle. They're selling an image. They're selling access to a community that Harley Davidson owners often want to be a part of. And what does that mean? And how are they represented to other people? And how do people see them when they see that you are a Harley owner, or if they see that you are an Apple owner, I used to have a Volkswagen Beetle. People always made assumptions about me based on the fact that I owned a Beetle. It's actually really funny. I bought it for the headroom because I'm really tall and I got tired of my head hitting the roof, but that's probably not something that Volkswagen put in their why, right? Like, that was just a weird thing that I did. But it's a super fun car to drive. If you get a chance to drive a turbo Beetle, have fun. But anyway, know your why. It's really important. Like I said, I'll put the link to the Simon and Sinek TED Talk on here because it is worth the 12 minutes, I think it is, to watch. All right. So let's keep going. We've got number 4. Number 4 is to be different, right? Cloning is great for plants, but it's not something that you want to do for your business. So if you are sounding like all the other edible companies, or if you're sounding like the other strains, like how are you different from everyone else? And embrace that. There is a quote from a woman named Sally Hogshead, who has a whole website on how to fascinate. And her whole thing is is being different is better than being better. So it is much, much better to embrace those quirks that you have, that quirks in your brand, those things of your products or services that stand out, that might be different from somebody else, and embrace those and blow those up, right? Rather than hide them. Because if you're hiding those things that make you different, you're going to be the same as everyone else. So you can work to be perfect, and you can focus and try and be perfect and make everything the best you can. But there's elements where after a certain point, that's actually not going to matter. What's going to matter more is how you stand out from your competition. Especially when you start looking at, some of the edible companies or the vape pens or whatever it is, whatever those products are, how do you stand out? And how do you embrace those differences and really stand out on those differences? And there are some brands that do this really, really well in the cannabis space. And we'll talk about those, and hopefully we will talk to the people who run them. So when we start looking at being different, there are a lot of campaigns and companies And you can see how this ties together with the knowing your why. So one of my favorite campaigns to talk about when I'm teaching advertising, I teach periodically at a local university, social media, advertising, and marketing. So when I'm teaching, one of the examples I use in the advertising class is the REI Opt Outside story in terms of how that campaign came about and how they did just an amazing job of embracing their mission and vision and understanding what their why is. So side story. So REI went to a bunch of agencies and said, we want to stand out from the competition during the holiday season. How do we do that? If you're not familiar with REI, they're outdoor recreational equipment. So camping gear, and it's a co-op. So they're all it's very much based on community and the love for outdoors. So they went to this agency and they said, we want to stand out during the holiday season. And, they got pitched from a lot of agencies and they heard from a lot of people, but the one that stood out for them was they were working closer with an agency who basically came back and said, what if you close on Black Friday, close all your stores, give that day back to your employees so that they can spend it with their friends and family, which goes back to the heart of the mission. And then they created a hashtag for this campaign called Opt Outside. And they have a funny story about how they filmed this ad on top of a mountain and the CEO is in it and he kept wanting to go hiking. So they kept losing him while they were trying to film it. If you listen to the podcast of the story, it's actually pretty funny. But more importantly is that they closed all their stores. They used the hashtag and put a bunch of advertising in place starting, I think, a month ahead of time they released it. And it was such a great example of embracing their difference as a retailer as well as their why. Hey, Stephanie, what's up? Welcome. It's so excited to see you here. I am just going over the 5 things that you need to know to create a winning marketing strategy. Right? We're on number 4. And I was playing with things to see how complicated I could make this. So I got crazy with the overlays. It's very fun. Whoops, wrong way. I got crazy with the overlays, right? Yeah, earlier we were talking no worries, Stephanie. Earlier we were talking about some of the challenges for cannabis marketing, especially when I was talking about the paid, earned, owned, and how it's easy to categorize most things except for social media into those categories, and what happens when you're marketing a company and you can't use that last pillar. You can't use paid, right? So how do you try and get to your audience if you're only focused on earned and owned for the most part? So those are some really interesting challenges that we're going to be talking about over time as I bring in some of the experts. But welcome, Stephanie. I'm so excited you're here. Stephanie's the one who helped make all this possible. So hopefully you guys love it. You can give her a shout out at Hey Stephanie on Facebook or Lights Camera Live on Facebook and lightscameralive.com, right, Steph? Okay. So we are going to number 5. Right, exactly. There's some specialized ad networks, but that we're going to be talking about, and I want to get a couple of people who do that to be interviewed. But you can't use paid social media unless you are a ninja and can hide the fact that you're doing paid. And you can't do paid Google ads. In fact, it's so bad that Google pulled all the cannabis keywords out of their ad tool. So their keyword finder, no cannabis words anymore as of the fall. They might be starting to come back, but it's crazy. So SEO search engine optimization becomes really, really important. And likely there's a couple experts that we're going to be talking about who specialize in cannabis marketing who specialize in search engine for search engine optimization for cannabis companies. Right? Exactly. No paid media on Facebook, Google, Instagram, YouTube, 0. So you have to rely on everything else, which takes me to the number 5 way to create your winning marketing strategy is market like you're going back to the future, right? If you are limited to if you're limited on the number of ads that you on not being able to run paid media and the things we can do online, and even some email vendors don't allow cannabis companies. I know because I checked in and emailed and chatted with over 20 of them in the fall, that you have to start looking at marketing like it's 1985 with some traditional marketing events and those things. So it's really fascinating in terms of what you want to do, and you want to blend those two together. Stephanie was just asking about placements on sites like Weed Maps. Yes. So there are some very specialized cannabis platforms that people have created in order to, I missed your last. So there are some very specialized cannabis friendly platforms that you can use. They're not very highly, most of them, from what I could tell when I was doing my research, they don't have a lot of traction, but they're starting. It's a place to go, especially for people where it's even illegal in your state. Stephanie is asking about if you can do paid advertising for things like topicals. So there's not a lot of understanding, and that's a great question. And I want to bring a CBD brand here to talk to because it's great to hear from them specifically. But if you are a CBD company that's selling topicals or what have you, and there's no THC at all, and it's made from hemp, what are your limitations? And you still, for the most part, are limited quite a bit because the government doesn't know the difference. So CBD is still treated the same in many, many ways. Not all, but in many ways. So it does create more challenges. Yep. Yeah, there was a bill that was going through to change it and separate it more, and it did not pass. So somebody's saying whack. Yes, it's true. It's totally whack. Yeah, so that's where people with directories, my friend Simone has, shout out to her site, Calagia, because she's created a LinkedIn type site for cannabis professionals, as well as there's quite a few other Cannabis Network Association, I think, and there's a lot of others that are popping up too. Exactly. Stephanie's saying that you can drive traffic to your site for just helpful articles and then build an email list that way. Exactly. And there's things you can do, right? Like you can use social media as long as you're careful and really follow the guidelines, which is what we're going to talk about next week. And there's a lot of like search engine optimization becomes extremely critical. And so there's a lot of things you can do. The cannabis industry is still very, very focused on networking and building that trust and seeing new faces with I don't want to say older faces, with the people who've been in the industry for a while, and really making sure that you're connected. So networking events are very, very important. Somebody's saying their friend got her account deleted and that she had over 13,000 followers on Instagram. Total bummer. Absolutely true. And that's something we're going to talk about because I actually don't know if Facebook's going to allow this, right? It's not technically legal, even though there is nothing to do with the plant right now other than talking to businesses who are using the plant or selling something on the plant. I actually heard of a recent account that was deleted on Instagram for, they had over, I want to say 50,000 followers, and it was deleted, and they weren't doing anything wrong except for posting images of, they did floral arrangements with cannabis in them for like weddings and events and stuff like that. And their account got deleted, and they think it was actually because sometimes competition will report the pages. And so that's fun too. Yay. Stephanie's asking if I am hosting networking events for Cannabis Network. Not right now. I have a lot of friends who are. We will be working on that. Hi, Holly. Welcome. It's great to see you guys here. Very excited that everyone's here. So welcome. We're getting close to the end. I don't want to keep everyone because I'm sure everyone's so excited to hear my voice go on and on for hours. So we're going to be going a little bit longer, but I was just talking about number 5 of the 5 things you need to know. And if you're coming in late, the replay will be available both on the Facebook page, on the Mota Marketing page, as well as on my website, motamarketing.com. But I want to talk a little bit more about marketing like you're going back to the future, right? So what I mean by that is take a look at traditional marketing, offline options, events, networking. People have done meetups here. Print, if you can, radio. I still haven't heard if it's legal if you, like, I'm in San Diego and there's radio stations that broadcast out of Mexico. It's a question I keep meaning to pose to a lawyer, because if you run the ad in Mexico technically and it can be overheard in the US, how does that work? But there's questions along those lines. But here in California, as I mentioned in the beginning, 71.6% of your audience who sees your ad or hears your ad has to be over the age of 21. And that is virtually impossible to gauge unless it's television. Or if you're just putting out magazines that are available in bars or what have you. So, or dispensaries. So it's really, really tricky, but there are a ton of events and there are cannabis specific options. So there are in dispensary like television networks, right? I've talked to a couple of people who either run them or work at them. There's ad networks for digital that are being created just for cannabis. And so there's a few of those that are available to try and get your ads out to websites that are cannabis friendly and they don't have a problem with you advertising there. So take a look at what your options are when you start looking at the old school, more traditional offline options, but then also come back to the future, right? You don't want to stay there. You want to create that balance based on where your audience is. So look at your digital options that make sense. If it's a digital network, great. Absolutely 100% you want to be using search engine optimization. You want to have a website. You want to be able to collect email addresses and use email, which we'll be talking about email friendly platforms you can use. Don't use MailChimp. That's my 2 cents. I'll go into details later, but MailChimp wanted to see every single email that was going out when I was talking to them, which just is not realistic. If you're trying to run your business and send emails, just send them to their legal department first for approval to make sure your cannabis friendly email is just okay. But there's challenges with email, which we'll talk about, but you want those email addresses, you want to have that direct connection, because as Stephanie mentioned earlier, she had a friend who had 13,000 followers on Instagram and the Instagram page got shut down. You lose all of those. So we'll be talking about how to drive back that traffic to your website to capture those email addresses and start building those relationships directly with people. So there are options. That's the good news. And so that's what we want to focus on. And that's what we're going to be talking about going forward, is focusing on what we can do. Because while we can't do things that get in the way, let's focus on what we can do and finding those solutions and seeing what's working for great brands like the Kivas of the world. How to get your names out there, like the Doseds, formerly Humboldt, right? How do you get your name out there? How do you get your brand out there and keep those people and your customers coming back, right? Whether you're a dispensary, a brand, like I said, an ancillary service, somewhere in that supply chain from growing to the dispensary and the retail, how do you get your customers to come in the door to purchase what you're selling, your services or your products, and then how do you keep them loyal? And what are your options there? There's so many different things to talk about, and I'm really, really excited that you guys are here, and I'm excited to be able to have this time and be able to talk about it, because there's a lot going on and it changes every day. So as we go forward, one of the things that I want to make sure I offer to you guys is that, I mentioned earlier, clones are great for cannabis plants and for growing, but not for your business. So do you want to be like everyone else, or do you want your business to stand out? You want to stand out, right? That's what we want. That's what we all want. You don't want to be the same as everyone else or even anyone else, right? We're all unique. So let's communicate that and share it with everybody. So in this case, if you want to talk a little bit more and keep this conversation going in between this week and next week, feel free to shoot me an email at hello@motamarketing.com. It's down there, right there. Yay. And let's book some time to talk about the right marketing for your business. Okay. And I'll see you next week. Next week, we're talking social media. It's my favorite. social media. It'll be social media days on Friday. We'll talk social media on Thursday. That way I can just keep it running through the rest of the day. 48 hours of social media. It'll be fantastic. All right, you guys. And I will talk to you then. Until then, have a great week, and I'll see you here next week. Thanks for being here. Bye, you guys.